The margin is slim. Death by paper cut sucks. But that's where the Jazz are. We're talking about it next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 bum. Pow.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Today, death by paper cuts, the slimmest of margins is what determines wins and losses in the NBA, and that's what got us last night against a tough Orlando Magic team, but a good litmus test of an Orlando Magic team. Jordan Clarkson is the Jazz third highest paid player. He's probably our second best player. And the Jazz really need him. He's actually our second highest paid player because Larry Markin only makes $17 million. So I take that back. He's our second highest paid player. And the Jazz really need him to step up to that level. We'll talk about the Jazz go a little bit as JC goes and why he is struggling. And this was 2 games into a 7-game stretch that we highlighted, and the Jazz are maybe as expected, 1-1 in that stretch. I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day, and to the everydayers, I love you. Thank you very much for being a part of the show each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA to use all and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for your first deposit match up to $100. Okay. So we lost last night. Close game. Orlando is a good, middle of the road litmus test of the NBA. I think we'll talk about the 7-game stretch, but this is why I think this 7-game stretch is such a great kind of discovery moment for the Utah Jazz. And a large part of it is if you look at Orlando last year, they start the year 5-20. They're kind of a mess. Jamal Mosley's a really good head coach from all indicators, not just what I'm saying, what players say to me. Joe last night when I was talking to him went out of his way. So then they go 29-24. And if you look at the Grizzlies in that stretch, look at the Magic in that 53-game stretch, they're the third best defense in the NBA. Well, guess what? So far this year, they're the third best NBA defense in the NBA. And what they do is they really get into the guards and they really, really pressure out front, which kind of breaks up your timing and your spacing. And then they really rotate to the ball beautifully on the backside. And they're committed. This is therefore, I think, other than when the Jazz are just purely out-talented, which will have nights, Denver probably was one of them, where the other team's just that much better. We're at a talent deficit compared to some teams in the league. We play Boston, play the Clippers, we beat them, but that's the truth. And I think, and play Minnesota tomorrow night, I think we're at a talent deficit to their starting 5. 4 of the 5 positions, right? When you suddenly look at the starters and 4 of the 5 positions, okay, you got it. So this is a hard matchup for us. What I love about the Jazz is that they then play with that hard through it. Last night was a night that's a hard night. This team leads the league in forcing turnovers at 18%. We turned it over 19% of the time. They're in you. Everything is tough in the half court last night. And kind of the signature to what the Jazz are is that they fought through it, played through it, kept going and going. The other honest signature to who we are right now is that we're just make a lot of mistakes. There's just a lot of there was a 4-play guard sequence between all of our guards that was just it was just kind of brutal. We just threw the ball away. And that's them pressuring. We're off rhythm. Everybody's off space because they're bumping and battling. And we're just a little bit off. Andy Larson did a really nice analysis in the Salt Lake Tribune about the 4 plays late in the game. Paulo Banchero's driving and we're supposed to push him into the help and we just don't do it. And those are just the little pieces of kind of a new team put together. And it's super hard to do all these things right all the time. I think it's, the beauty of this team is I don't think we have to sit here and wonder whether or not their intentions are good. Their intentions are great. And so then, okay, well, because the game's going a million miles an hour, it's super fast, and it's really, really hard to make the right play all the time. Sometimes they don't. And that's a bummer because we'd like them to be perfect when we're rooting for them, but that's not always the way it works. To me, what I keep seeing is like a rushed experience because Taylor's doing this for the first time, and because Colin is Colin, and because Keontae's doing it for the first time, and Walker, frankly, is doing this for the first time, which is a worthwhile conversation we need to have. I see them being rushed. Everything's a little quicker than it needs to be. Kelly's inbound pass, probably just 5-second call. And Jordan Clarkson on that same play probably could have paused for a minute to let something happen. Or on the play before to Taylor Horton-Tucker, probably could have paused for a minute. But frankly, you got a wide open look from Taylor Horton-Tucker, a wide open three. That, Orlando did a super good job at that point of like on these little things. Give Orlando credit. I'm sure Jamal Mosley has plenty of things he thinks they missed on as well. But the Jamal, where they did a super good job to rotate off Taylor Horton-Tucker. He's actually shooting 40% on catch and shoot threes from the end of last year through this year. And so I thought I'm pretty excited about that look. The fact is his career is a 28% 3-point shooter. And then on the other one, like, I don't think Taylor's finished a lot of games. Like, how many times do you think Taylor has had a shot in the final 5 seconds of an NBA game to win it? Like, my guess is 0. My guess is that unless he got something late last year, he hasn't done it before. And this, I think, is something that we probably have not talked about enough, and we probably should talk about more, which is the final 25 games of last year, which were really cool. And Ochai got a bunch of time, and Walker started and played well, and Taylor got a bunch of time, are not the same thing as the first 25 games of an NBA season. And Will talked about it last night. Everyone starts at 0-0. Everyone's coming at you full throttle. No, you're not playing. You're playing full rosters. You're playing, the media might be breaking down teams as though they're contenders and not contenders, but every team has self-belief and is at this point sitting there saying like, okay, we can put this together. We can do this. We've got a chance. And they're pretty engaged and they're playing all out. And the effort level is fabulous right now. And there's no kind of outside influences of trades and other things and all these things that kind of get in the way along the way. And the fact of the matter is this is a much more difficult time to play basketball than it is any other time in your career, like, or at any other time in the season like this. So this is like when we're talking about Taylor doing things or Ochai doing things or Walker doing things, they've never done this before. They've never played the first 25 games. By the way, the answer on my question a moment ago, I just looked it up. Taylor last night, he took 2 shots last year with the game in the final 24 seconds of a game within 1 possession. He took 1 the year before in LA, and he took 3 2 years prior to that in LA. So he has taken a grand total of 7. That was his 3rd 3 attempt. That's pretty limited. These are all new experiences. Those new experiences also are where we're making some of these mistakes. But like the battle is there. Back cuts. Memphis got 15 shots at the rim last night in the second quarter. 15. Like that's what we can talk about the final, and Andy did a great job, so this is not a criticism. We can talk about the final 4 plays all we want. Recency bias will have us do that. The Jazz lost last night because they allowed 15 shots at the rim in the second quarter of the game, and they allowed 8 shots at the rim in the third quarter. That's an alarming amount. We allowed 50% of our shots at the rim. Like that's a pretty significant defensive breakdown. What I saw happen, and I need to rewatch the game to really make sure, and I didn't take the time to do that with packing and wanting to spend some time with my wife before I left on this trip, is what I think I saw in that quarter is in the first quarter, Walker dominates the game early, is kind of in on them. Walker, I think, blocks 5, may have blocked 5 shots in the first quarter of the game. Maybe some of them were later. He blocks 2 in the first quarter. He gets a few more. He gets 3. I think he gets 5 by halftime. And they're struggling to get. Wendell Carter's down by the rim. The Jazz are doing a good job. They're struggling with it. They're 1 for 4 in the rim in the first quarter. They move Wendell Carter up and they start slashing behind us, and they get 13 in transition as well. They get 13 shots at the rim in the second quarter. They get 9 shots in the rim in the third quarter. Like that's crazy number stuff. But those are the things that are actually changing the outcome of games. That's what cost us the game last night. If you really want that, like and it's the death by paper cuts. It's the getting beat on the back door on the baseline with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter for a dunk. It's giving a team that's 24th in the league offensively just too many easy possessions along the way. Sure, it's a little bit of this late game execution stuff, but I actually thought their late game execution was pretty darn good. It's the fact that we are struggling on the guard line. Like, there's just no question. The venom of the fans is to Taylor Horton-Tucker and Colin Sexton, when I'm not sure that's actually correctly where it's all should be placed. It's generally universal, right? Like, Keontae had 2 turnovers in 16 minutes. Taylor had 2 turnovers in 31 minutes. Colin had 2 turnovers in 60 minutes. Jordan had 6 turnovers last night in 37 minutes. Like, that's tough. We had 20 turnovers. We turned it over 20% of our possessions last night. We have little frailties offensively that if we're suddenly 20% of the time, we're not getting a shot up, that's tough. Right? Shot 73% of the line in a 1-point game. We're doing some things great. Like, our rebounding is just fabulous. Like, that's become a pillar of who we are, both on the offensive and the defensive end of the floor. We're like really, really good. We're the second best offensive rebound team, the 5th best team. That's effort. That's John Collins having an impact. That's great stuff. We're fouling too much, which thus allows a not very good offensive team like Orlando to get too many free buckets. There were just too many easy buckets last night for an Orlando team that's not good offensively. It's going to be in your shorts all night defensively. All right. Taylor and Colin get most of the venom. Jordan's the bellwether of how we play. We'll talk about it when we continue here on Locked on Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. I am currently driving. Which of my Hyundais should I drive? I own the Ioniq 5, which is, I was talking actually to my really good friend Ben Bagley about this the other day. He wanted to know what I thought of it. I was like, I love it. The 6 is amazing. Get the 6. Those are the electric cars they have. Their award-winning vehicles are just endless, whether it's the new Coda, the zippy small SUV, and some of their hybrids with part electric, part gas, which if you have a shorter commute, are pretty great setups. The Santa Fe, we own 2 of them in the house, and I'm driving one of the new zippy ones right now that's absolutely fabulous. It's all at 4646 South State Street. If you're going to go by there, feel free to email me first, either in Linden, Logan, or Murray. Please tell me where you're going at DLock09, and I will get you a VIP treatment that you deserve by being a Locked On everydayer. That's at Murdoch Hyundai at 4646 South State Street, or in Logan or in Linden. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. What fun can we have at Prize Picks today? You pick the points, rebounds, and do not pick against other people. It's so fun. With the basketball season here, you can pick combo projections across football and basketball for special leagues, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players. So you can go LeBron James and Travis Kelce if you want to. I don't know, just well-known names. Along with Prize Picks favorite players, you can now get community picks where you use promo tabs to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks communities. Even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits a game in the first half and does not return in the second, the player is rebooted, and the Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports with insurance injury policy. It's all at Prize Picks, so go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA for your first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA for your first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, a way to make the game more fun. Thank you very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. So I don't want to single him out. He's awesome. We love him. I love him. He's the coolest dude on the planet. But Jordan Clark, we're going to go as Jordan goes. Like, Lowry's been great. Lowry maybe has been better this year than he was all of last year. Lowry playing through that injury last night, Lowry battling it, couldn't move after hitting the ground on that fall, is everything you want out of Lowry. JC, Jordan Clarkson's heart and desire are perfect. The thing I don't think people realize about Jordan, because he's such a cool cat, whatever you want to call it, I don't know what the right phrase is that he actually goes on emotional roller coasters because he cares so passionately about how this team does and how he does. He's really one of the most fiercely competitive and just kind of, gets in things. Right now, we're going as he goes. Now, in our opening loss of the year against Sacramento, he had pretty good numbers. But in our last 3 losses, Jordan is a combined 10 of 40 from the floor with 16 turnovers and 2 of 15 from 3. So in our last 3 losses, Jordan is 10 of 40 from the floor, 2 of 15 from 3 with 16 turnovers. Now, to Jordan's credit, he also has 13 assists, and he's trying to do everything the correct way in those circumstances. He's had 6 assists or more in 4 of the 6 games. He had 5 or more in 5 of the 6 games. Like, Jordan's trying to pick up the load. So why is it happening? Let's, rather than just Jordan, we're going to do a little bit more intellectually than that. So there's a few things that are happening. One, he has a larger role of the ball in his hands more. 2, the one thing I've noticed is we're just not getting Jordan into the paint with a pivot, step through thing. Either defenses are better or we just don't have the spacing on the floor that's allowing Jordan to get that much room to go do stuff. We don't have high volume 3-point shooters. Taylor's not particularly high percentage. Colin doesn't take a lot. If Chris is on the floor, Chris doesn't take a lot. We do not have Keontae's not putting the fear of God in anyone yet. We do not have high volume 3-point shooters. Lowry's our best 3-point shooter out there. John Collins is not being guarded. He's nailing it. It's awesome. He's, I think, 4 of 11 or now that he missed that last one in corner threes, which is just terrific. But he's not being guarded out there right now. Which is fine. That's keep going. But it also means that when Jordan drives the basket and you're trying to get free, he's not getting a lot of room. So the first thing that jumps out to me is just simply utter lack of room for Jordan right now. The second one is I think Jordan is pressing. I think he feels the need. He's clearly our second best player. He's our second leading scorer. And I think he feels the need. And we're playing this kind of non-pick and roll drive game. And he's just getting caught into the teeth of the defense too many times. And so we've got to find a way to free him up and get him some space and do things. The other one is that we don't have many off the bounce 3-point shooters. We really don't have very many at all. And so when you don't look at the off the bounce when you don't have the off the bounce 3-point shooters, then what you end up having is that Jordan ends up being kind of the one to take the off the bounce 3-point shot. And last night when the guards are picking you up at 35 feet, it'd be really nice to have that. And we just haven't been able to find that. I was wrong. John is 3 of 11 on corner threes this year, 27%. Wow, I thought he was better than that. I had different numbers on that. Strange. I had him at 4 of 10 last night, and then he missed last one for 4 of 11. I wonder why. So really, we just don't have the spacing, right? If Jordan's out there to open the game with Walker, Taylor, John Collins, it's a scuffle right now to figure out to get good looks on the floor for him spacing wise. It would be interesting to kind of dig into Jordan a little bit and see what he's doing with various lineups on the floor and where he's getting space. I'd be curious to know what his first quarter numbers are right now. I wonder if I can find those and whether, first and third quarters, he's struggling more when he's on the floor for some period of time there with the likes of Kessler, Collins, and Markin. That's not a very, John is still in the, everyone's kind of wait and see on John, if that makes sense. And so they're all waiting to see whether or not he's going to make his shots this year after last year. And so he is still not getting any respect on the corners. And therefore he doesn't have a lot of spacing. What's super interesting is I just pulled it up. Jordan's starting game's great. He's shooting 48% to start. He's shooting 33% in second quarters, 33% in third quarters, and 29% in fourth quarters. Jordan's shooting in second halves of game 32% and 29% from 3. Not sure why. Not sure that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it's a big issue for the Jazz. The fact is that Lowry's our best player, and Jordan really needs to be our second best player. And we're going to go as Jordan, you're going to go as your 2 best guys go. That's the story on this team. Is largely that we have one top 100 player, And then there was a cadre of guys that kind of got mentioned in the 90s to the 115s, and are any of them going to step up? We've talked about that. And that's what has to happen for this team to be really, really good. And so Jordan's, as for all the talk of the other guards, Jordan's the one that's the most important. That's the burden of his existence that he has as a 31-year-old veteran with 10 years, is that's his role. We're relying on him to do that. And he's fully capable. He showed it all of last year. He's fully capable right now, though. We go as he goes. His true shooting percentage in wins is 61%. His true shooting percentage in losses is 43%. His field goal percentage in wins is 46. His field goal percentage in losses is 32. His field 3-point is 64, and his 3-point in wins and 20 in losses. Right? So we're going as Jordan goes. And in turn, when Jordan's good, we're really good. Like against Memphis, we were rolling because Jordan's going. And then our offensive rating is super good and clicking. So, that's kind of the reality of where we are right now, is that we need, again, it's death by paper cuts. We're at a talent deficit a little bit on a lot of nights. And so we need all of our guys to step up and have big nights. And then there's an incredible burden on Lowry, Jordan, and John Collins, probably. And you'd love to put that burden on Walker, but he's a second-year player starting for the first month of the season for the very first time in his whole life. I think it's kind of ill-advised to put that on Walker, frankly. So that's my take on it. You're obviously, no, I'm not telling you can disagree or agree, but I think that's where we are. We need to be really good when these guys are on the floor. What's interesting is if you look at kind of our offensive, I think you need 10 games to really look at this. And I think we need, the exciting one is that we get, I think by 11 games, we'll really have this figured out. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But if you look at our offensive ratings of what we do when different guys are on the floor right now, it's beginning to get a little interesting. So when Kelly's on the floor, we're a 117. Okay, that means when we're spaced out, we have some room. Kelly's usually playing for Walker, that we're better offensively. We're struggling when John Collins is on the floor. We're a 107.8 offensively. Of our primary guys, that's the worst number. Okay, well, that's probably because we're clogged up a little bit. Those are kind of telling numbers. Our three guys that are least best offensive rating guys are Collins, Tucker, and Clarkson. Our three best are Linnick, Abaji, and Sexton. Okay, I got it. That begins to vibe a little bit. That's the spacing. Spacing is the key to the NBA. So it's interesting to see. Our defensive ratings are interesting also. Our best defensive rating is when Chris Dunn and Lowry Markkanen are on the floor. They're probably our two best defensive players. Our worst defensive ratings are when Collins, Sexton, Ochai Agbaji, and Keontae George are on the floor. Keontae's defensive rating is far worse than everybody else's on the team. He's a rookie. Not surprising. So we're beginning to see this kind of materialize as you'd anticipate. All right. We talked about the 7-game stretch a lot. I want to dig into the first two and look at the rest of it as we continue here on Locked On Jazz on the Friday edition. I might do a bonus edition this weekend. I owe you one from yesterday. I went and spoke at Bill Riley's class, and I just couldn't get a show out. So I might do an extra Ask LOJ or a live show or something special this weekend. I'm around. I'm still coming off knee surgery. I can't get out and about like I usually want to. So might do something for you. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sports book of Locked On, a partner of the NFL, and the best way to get involved is America's #1 sports book, FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Well, just start going to the NFL and figure out what the best team. You just need a win, right? What is the biggest margin in the NFL this weekend? Go find it and go get your $150 of bonus bets. You can figure out how you want to do it. I'm not giving you any advice. You're just smart enough. You're bright. You understand what's going on here. It's all at FanDuel.com. By the way, NBA games tonight. Cleveland's at Indiana. That's a 2.5-point edge for Cleveland in that one. Milwaukee's a 5.5-point favorite against New York. That's interesting to watch Milwaukee after their disaster the other night. Warriors and OKC is a good one tonight. 5.5-point favorite for the Warriors. And then Dallas and Denver. Dallas is undefeated, but they're a 6.5-point dog at Denver after Denver's coming off their really poor performance that they had the other night. Over on the NFL weekend, the biggest line for you out there this weekend is a 8.5-point spread where the Saints are an 8.5-point spread over the Bears. So jump on, get involved, have some fun, be a part of all of the excitement that is what takes place at FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And with your bonus, if you get the win, you get $150 back. Go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel. Bonus bets is what you get. FanDuel.com/locked-on. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Remember that each and every Jazz game is available on SiriusXM. If you have a smart speaker and you subscribe to Sirius, you can get me by just saying, hey, blank, play Utah Jazz on SiriusXM. All right, this 7-game stretch to me is just awesome. So we played 4 of the best teams in the league. And now we play a 7-game stretch where we play in Orlando. It's like a perfect mix, okay? Memphis is kind of a dumpster fire right now. Orlando's going to be battling for the 8th spot in the Eastern Conference. We're going to Minnesota, who might be really good. Rudy is great right now. Minnesota is rolling. They're the #2 defense in all of the NBA. They're 2-2. They've got a great differential. They're not great offensively. Our defense hasn't been great. So we get to find out if our defense can be pretty good. It was okay last night. Then we go to Indiana, who's an offensive firepower, 7th ranked offense, but terrible defensively, probably battling for the 8th or 9th spot. So right in the middle of the pack team, a good bellwether the way Orlando was. We go to Chicago. I think in reverse order, we go to Chicago first. Chicago's kind of a mess. Chicago's kind of in the Memphis. You got to beat them. Like they're -9 differential right now. They're 26th offensively, 22nd defensively. They're 2-3, but might not be that good. Like that's, if you're going to go on the road and be like a borderline playing team, you probably got to go get Chicago. Then we go to Memphis for our first playing game. Grab that. Then we have Portland, who's not particularly good right now either. They're not bad. I kind of think Portland's better than everyone thinks, but they're 29th in the league offensively, 15th defensively, 24th over, -8 differential. Like we should get those guys. So you've got this 7-game stretch where we're 1-1. We took advantage of Memphis. We got beat by paper cuts against Orlando. It would have been nice to get, if you win that game, it's a step of maturity, a little better execution. It's like you are your result. And so, hey, if we'd won last night, like we're a little bit better than right now. Like this isn't criticism. Like JC has a better game, we probably win that game, right? Like that's what you got to have. You got to have your second best player, second best offensive player, second best player, making some plays to get you wins. And now as we go, like Minnesota, winning in Minnesota would be a monster win. That would be a huge surprising win because I think they just crushed Denver. They're playing super well. They had a collapse against Atlanta that prevents them from being 3-1 right now. They're not very good offensively, though. So, like, can we hang with it? Can we figure out how to score? We're pretty good offensively, I think. We were up to 12th the other night after the Memphis game. We're at 14th right now. Can we pull the defensive numbers back up? They're getting better and better and better. We're not playing the great offensive teams. Like you look at the stretch, I think the other one is like, okay, we're playing Minnesota, ranks 21st defensively. We're playing Indiana, who ranks 7th offensively. Chicago's 26th. Memphis is 30th. Portland's 29th. Like, if we don't have some good defensive games here coming up, we got a problem. Like, we should have some really good defensive games coming up here, or else we got a problem. Orlando's not a great offensive team. Orlando backcut us, beat us. They're 24th in the league defensively. They're offensive, but like last night, we were actually pretty good defensively. Their offensive rating was a 107.5. That's not like, it's well below league average. So we did a pretty good, like, I don't think we're going to be better than average defensively. So if we keep them below their average, that's pretty good. That's a good defensive night for us. They're a 106.9. They were a 107.5 last night. We kept them right at their average. That makes us like the 15th ranked defensive team. I'd be super pleased with that. We should be pretty good offensively. If we can be 15th defensively, 15th offensively, it's right where we should be. But we've got it like we weren't 15th offensively last night. 20% of our possessions were turnovers. Little things. And some of them were bad. Some of them are because Orlando forces a buttload of turnovers and gets in you and battles you. And it's hard. And the fact that the Jazz stayed in that game and fought through that and didn't wilt is the best sign. Because Orlando's going to beat some teams this year where they wilt. Frankly, the Lakers wilted on them the other night. Orlando dominated the Lakers for 44 minutes. And I do not know how Orlando lost that game. And then Orlando came out and played that pressure against the Clippers, and the Clippers just beat the crap out of them back. This is where the Harden trade is kind of mysterious to me because I really thought the Clippers had an identity, which is they were bigger, longer, and stronger than everyone. Pow! And when Orlando got in them the other night, the Clippers just got back, and Orlando was like, oh, crap, someone actually comes at us harder, and Orlando didn't know what to do. So, be interesting. It would be interesting to rewatch some of last night's game because I do feel as though Wendell Carter hits those threes in the second quarter. It spreads the thing out, and then all of a sudden they start slicing behind us and being able to make a bunch of plays. I'll do that with Ron on the show. So this is a really, really fun stretch. We're going to, by this time, next Tuesday with the second play-in game, hopefully we're 2-0 in play-ins. We're juiced for the Phoenix play-in game coming in after that. Our purple court is rocking, and, we're feeling good. On the other end, if we finish the 7-game stretch at 2-5, and we went into it at 1-3, and we're suddenly 3-8, Will Hardy said last night he likes to look at 10-game stretches. Well, that would be a really telling 10-game stretch if we're 3-8. I'm going 11 just because of what our schedule is. I just think it's a beautiful mix and match of 4 really, really good teams, 3 or 4 middle range teams, and 3 or 4 not very good teams. It's just a really great match to see where we are. All right. Thank you very much. We'll see if we do a bonus show. We may do something. So keep an eye out. If you could subscribe and then hit the little bell button on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, subscribe and hit the bell button, and then that will let you know that each and every time we go live. Have a great one. Thank you very much for listening to Locked On Jazz. I appreciate all the everydayers. I appreciate everyone that tunes in every day. Apologize if you didn't get out yesterday's show. And hope you're enjoying Postcast with Ron Boone as well.